What's going on here? Oh God, no, it's blinding me. I'm going back down here. Let's see if we can get up here. Nah, too much effort. Going back down here. Now what's this? Hang on. Who's this? What's all this? What's he up to? I know I'm going to get him. Oh, I'm going to get him cut. Come on, mate. All right.
What is this tiger cub doing? Is it exploring its environment, searching for food sources? Is he trying to decide if that chihuahua is a predator and getting ready to fight him or flee it? Is he maybe testing the sofa to see if it will support the weight of his human friends? No. Of course, it's doing something that many, many animals do, which is to play. That's also been quite appallingly cute. I wonder if you can get a tiger cub. So some early researchers into play, in both young animals and young humans, thought that its value must lie in being a kind of rehearsal for activities that would prove to be useful later as an adult, maybe like hunting or fighting. And they thought this in a very reductive way. However, more recent research has shown that that's not the case, or at least not necessarily. We now know that a hallmark of play is that it's implicitly purposeless and done for its own sake. It's usually free-form and improvisational, and it can change, it really lowers our self-consciousness, our awareness of ourselves, and it can change our awareness of the passage of time in strange ways. So good morning, Ruth. My name is Richard Lemarchand. I'm a game designer, a producer, and now I'm also an associate professor in the Interactive Media and Games Division of the School of Cinematic Arts at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. In America, in the world, in space. Until about a year ago, I worked at Naughty Dog, where I was a lead game designer on all 3 games in the Uncharted series. I had an amazing time working in the console game industry. I count myself incredibly lucky to have worked on a string of games that I really enjoyed both making and playing. And I'm now very excited to be teaching the great way of making games that I learned about at Naughty Dog to a whole new generation of game designers in the US Games program, USC Games program. I'm also very, very excited to be opening w00t with you all this morning. It's really a great honour to have been invited here by Thomas and my friends in the Copenhagen Game Collective and the organisers of w00t. And it's lovely to finally be here in beautiful Copenhagen. This is my first time here, and your great city is really living up to its lovely reputation. And I can't wait to explore and to play some games and to just play at the festival here today. So who here has ever created a game? It could be a computer game, a card game, board game, street game, whatever. If you've made a game, I'm not going to make you put your hands up, just say yeah. Yeah. Oh, excellent. That's what I figured. I thought there would be a lot of game creators. Now, who among you based your game on a game that already existed? Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, many of the games I've worked on were created that way. You take a core idea that you know works well in another game or another context, and then you build on it in a new direction. And that's partly how we made the Uncharted games, drawing inspiration from everything from Mario 64 to Naughty Dog's own Jack and Daxter series. Now, who here has made a game where you're trying to make a kind of game that had never ever existed before? Yeah. Excellent. All right. You are a bunch of awesome experimental game makers. Now, I'm not saying that the Uncharted series is experimental in the same sense that we normally talk about experimental game design, but we were trying to make something completely new in certain aspects with the series. Since we were trying to make, a different kind of cinematic game than had existed before, one that would tell a story every bit as great as in our favourite movies, but that would keep you, the player, in control of the action nearly all the time. So the description of my talk today makes a lofty claim that it's not just game designers who can be experimental, but that video game players themselves are like scientists, experimentally investigating the worlds of the games that they play. They form hypotheses, and they perform experiments, gather data, and draw conclusions in order to eventually build knowledge about the world of the game. And doing so allows them to do new things and to have new kinds of experience in the world of the game. And this is just the same way that scientists explore our physical universe, right, for information about how it works. And in doing so, they make it possible for us to build technology that cures disease, allows us to travel to Mars, and lets us apply digital computing technology to its most vitally important application, video game play. Did you know that it took less than 2 years between the creation of the first modern computer and for these guys, Steve Russell and Martin Gretz, to build the world's first video game, Space War? I think that tells us a lot about computers. So I don't think there's any better example of this than Mojang's unique indie mega hit Minecraft. I've spent hours in the single-player part of this game, figuring out how to use the abilities and the creative opportunities that the game provides, and exploring not just the uniquely generated worlds that the game creates for each new player, but the systems of the world, seeing how each part of the world works and how it fits together with every other part of the world. Now, there's something really magical that goes on here when a human being does this kind of thing. It's especially magical for me, since I'm a game designer who recently became a teacher. And it just so happens that we often find this kind of exploration, discovery, and learning to be great fun. As the game designer Chris Crawford wrote, it seems that fun is the emotional response to learning. And human beings are complex creatures. It's taken us a few thousand years of culture, and maybe only about 500 years of anything resembling modern science, to even start to figure out what makes us tick. And one of the things that excites me about game design is that, just like their players, game designers are rather like explorers in a laboratory of the human mind and body. With the mechanics, rules, and affordances that we create in our games, and the ways that we find to let human beings perceive, act, and express themselves in our games, we can shed light on the process of thinking, feeling, and relating to ourselves and to each other. And in doing that, we ultimately shed light on what it means to be a human being. So for me, experimentation in game design and the innovation it leads to is very important. And I've been very inspired in the AAA games I've made by the world of experimental independence and art games. I'm a member of the faculty of the GDC Experimental Gameplay Workshop, where each year at GDC we show the best of the year's experimental games at our annual conference in San Francisco. And I taught a class this semester that focused on the creation of experimental games, which even served to deepen my interest in this exciting field. So by trying to break new ground with the games that we make, we can really advance games as a whole. For instance, when I played The Graveyard by the Belgian art game developer Tale of Tales, it showed me that if we put a lot of effort into the Peaceful Village section of Uncharted-2 Among Thieves, that you can see in the bottom right here, which was a part of the game that was unusual, not really having anything in the sense of traditional gameplay, then it could have a big positive impact on the player's experience of the game as a whole. Alright, so what advice would I have for someone who wanted to make an experimental game? I'm going to be preaching to the choir here a little bit, because I know you guys are probably very experienced in this. I've had to think about this subject matter a lot over the course of the last 4 months, and let me see if I can compress a 15-week university course into 2 minutes. So the first thing to do, of course, is to get an idea for your game. Now this can be very difficult. I often suffer from the old blank sheet of paper problem, where I just don't know where to start with a new project. However, at the end of the day, a good idea can come from anywhere. And I think this is one of the wonderful things about game jams, which provide a ready-made theme for you to base your game on. Zoe Buta, who you'll be hearing from a little later in the day, helps to organise the annual Global Game Jam. And as many of you know, the theme of this year's jam was simply the sound of a beating human heart. I thought this was so amazing when I heard it. That's so cool. So people used this simple constraint to create an incredible variety of games, covering everything from heart transplants to lie detectors. And it really goes to show that embracing an almost arbitrary constraint is a great way to unlock your creativity and really get your ideas flowing. But if you're stuck with your own blank sheet of paper problem, or if you have too many ideas and you don't know which one to start with, do what I sometimes do and go to Wikipedia Random. Do you guys ever use this? It's so awesome. If you just click on Special Random right there in the top line, you'll be steered into a world of knowledge that you never even suspected existed. And eventually you'll find an idea for a game that you really like. These, I swear to God, these are the first three things that came up. I think this would be an amazing subject for a video game, specifically pagodas, as distinct from other kinds of vertical religious structures. I don't know this song, but it sounds very evocative. And then, my God, there's a huge list of subject matter for a game. However, I think once you've chosen a subject for your game, it's very important to stick with it and see that game through to the end, to at least the point where, as we say in my classes, you can competently abandon it. You know, there's this idea that an artwork is never finished, only ever abandoned, and I like it when people competently abandon something, and they kind of tidy it up, finish it up just enough to be able to put it on a website. So the next thing to do is decide what tools to use. We've got loads of powerful tools that we can download for free. Not all of them are very easy to use though. So I recommend that my students look to other tools that we can use to drag and drop things onto a stage and use pull-down menus to set up interactivity. But of course, even if you don't want to make a computer game at all, you can still get moving, getting some paper, pens, glue, scissors, counters, dice, and make a physical game. And in fact, this is how we get people started in learning game design at USC to this very day, even if they already know how to program. Because making a physical prototype, of course, can be a great way to work out the early ideas in the design, even of a digital game that you want to make. The main idea I want to give you here, that this is something that everyone can do, as you guys know. You can go home tonight and start doing this, and you'll be amazed to discover, once you start thinking outside the box, how many things people have never made a video game about. Now, you guys might want to fact check this, but I spent a little bit of time to research. I don't think that there has ever been a game about cheese making, for instance. I'm sure there's been some cheese creation in a game somewhere, but not a game dedicated to cheese construction. I'm pretty sure there's never been a game about nematodes, these little worms that do strange things that, like, you can split them in half and they both know what the original worm knows. And I'm sure that there's never been a game about the discovery of radioactivity. So there's three for you tonight. And if you need any more encouragement, you should check out Anne Entropy's great book, Rise of the Video Game Zinesters, which is packed with advice about how to make games and what to make them about. And Entropy, of course, is the art game designer behind amazing games like Dysphoria, Mighty Jillof, and Triad. And you can get a book for sale online, of course. It costs about €10. It makes a great gift. My last bit of advice for you when you're making your experimental game is to do something that you should start doing right at the very start of development, when you've only put a couple of hours' work into your game. There's something that seems really, really obvious when you say it, but not that many game designers, even experienced game designers like me, consistently remember to do it. And of course, that's to playtest your game. Now, don't wait to playtest your game. Last month, I worked on a game for more than a week without playtesting it. And when I finally sat my friend down in front of what I'd been working on, I realised that I'd waited about 6 days too long. I can't stress this enough. Do just a few hours' work and get someone else to play it. They don't need even to tell you anything about what they're experiencing, although it can be really helpful if they do. And remember not to give any help at all. This is the thing that I have to stress to my students over and over again. We all have, when we show someone our game, this almost irresistible compulsion to begin to explain it, say, no, don't do that, do it like this. You have to just leave them alone to play it, and take a million notes. I tell my students that their pencil, their pennage should be a blur as they write down everything that they see in the game. Especially, even, or maybe especially, things that you already know are missing or broken. Because those are the things that you need to fix first. And the best way to do that is to get a list. So I think that this is the part of game design that's like a wonderful cross between science and art. As the experiments that you do with the help of your playtesters have an enormously positive impact on the quality of your game, while at the same time you, the designer, have to make the same editorial decisions about the content of your work that any other artist has to make. So good luck. I really hope, and I know, I trust and know that you guys are going to be making games again over the course of this week. I think the most important thing to remember in experimental game design is that, just like in science, there is no such thing as a failed experiment. Even an experimental game that turns out terrible teaches us something about what kind of gameplay works and what doesn't. The only reliable way to become a better game designer is to make games and, most importantly, show them to people. It takes a lot of hard work and a whole lot of courage when you have to show your stuff to people. It can be very emotionally exposing. But I don't know anything to do that's more interesting, more fun, and more rewarding than making games. So I quickly want to tell you about just 3 of my recent favourite experimental games. The first is this strange, beautiful game called Starseed Pilgrim by the Toronto-based designer Drocken, which he made in collaboration with his friends Renton and Ryan Roth. And in this game, you explore this expanse of white space, populated only by some blocks, which you can dig through in the way that you just saw. And you have a few of these magic seeds. You just planted one right there. And the seeds are different colours, and each coloured seed grows differently, creating new blocks that you can then stand on to continue to explore the space. And there's this growing threat in the game. You can see it in the bottom left there, this black infection that is slowly spreading out through the blocks. And there's another aspect of the game too, a surprise that I'm not going to spoil for you. But I love this game, and if it seems interesting to you, you can download it from Drocken's website. That's DROQEN.com, along with a whole host of other amazing games that this talented game designer's made. He made a game called Asphyx. Has anyone played that? It's a game, it's a platform game. You have to go underwater, and when your character is on water, you have to hold your breath. So it's played on an honor system, and if you let that breath out, then you have to restart. It's a very clever game. So the second game I want to show you is a really fun one, and it's called Space Team. I bet a bunch of you have already played this. Yes, nice, excellent, excellent. Like Starseed Pilgrim, we showed it at this year's experimental gameplay workshop. It's for the iPhone and the iPad, and it's by the developer Henry Smith, who used to work at BioWare. I'm going to let his video trailer for the game tell you all about it. It's played on multiple iPads. And each person sees something like this on the screen. It's a randomly generated control panel, procedural, spatial, content. And you get an instruction like engage string beam, and somebody else has the engage string beam role, and so you have to yell out just as if you were on the deck of a starship to some of it is like on the floor like this, do crazy actions. And the ship is slowly blowing up, and if you guys don't coordinate to do all these different crazy activities well enough, then it hastens your demise. There's usually a lot of swearing, a lot of laughing in the course of playing this game. And it's really amazing. I mean, you can play it on the iPhone or the iPad. I think it's maximum 4 players. I don't know if anyone knows.
You can put 8 in the experimental zone.
Oh, you can? Nice. Excellent. Thank you. So, yes, very good stuff. Space Team by Henry Smith. And then the third and final game I want to quickly tell you about is a piece of interactive fiction. Interactive fiction, or IF as it's known, is making a huge comeback in the world of computer games right now, as I'm sure you know, with a host of talented new voices like Emily Shaw and Christine Love, making intriguing games with incredibly high standards of writing. And this game is by the game designer Porpentine, and it's called Howling Dogs. And I'm not bashful in saying that this is my favourite piece of interactive fiction of all time. Please be warned that, like much of Porpentine's work, it's got adult subject matter, and it's really a kind of meditation on identity and constraint, and it also provides a kind of satire on the current crop of video games that we make and play. You'll see by this introductory quote from the Japanese novelist Oe Kenzaburo that it's a very literary game, and you can check it out on Porpentine's site, aliendovecot.com. So, play is this primal impulse that scientists are only now beginning to understand better. But human beings have turned playing games into something more. We've turned them into a cultural form. Now, Latin uses the same word, ludus, for both play and games. And if you follow the online conversation about games and play as art and culture, you'll know that we're still virulently debating the exact definition of these two English words. What we can all agree on, though, is how important games and play are. They've always played a role in both our private and our public lives, whether we're children or adults, for entertainment, for leisure, and as a kind of art. And this beautiful 20-sided dice from Egypt is made of the mineral serpentine and dates from somewhere in the first 3 centuries BC. Play and games can help us make meaning out of the complex, even chaotic world around us. Here is Sancta Maria Bona Fortuna, venerated by the Jesuits in Cologne in the Middle Ages. And her name has a clear connection to Fortuna, the goddess, the Roman goddess of good luck. Now, it took modern scholars many years to realise that games are culture in just the same way that other art forms are, from painting to sculpture to literature and cinema. Whether it's chess, basketball, Bioshock or Journey, it's become clear that games and play are culture that let us relax and be entertained, that we can use to learn or train, that reflect our hopes and dreams, that we can express ourselves through, and that ultimately embody our preoccupations and values. Indeed, as we head further into the early 21st century, games have firmly established themselves as an exciting contemporary art form. Games and play now form a part of the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And this year, the United States National Endowment for the Arts made its first award of a grant to an artist video game developer. Coincidentally, my friend and boss, Tracy Fullerton, who's developing a game called Walden, based on the work of the writer Henry David Thoreau. Now, we don't yet fully understand the role of play in our lives, but we're starting to from a psychological, sociological, neurological, as well as a cultural point of view. We know that not playing enough is bad for you. The scientist and psychiatrist Dr. Stuart Brown studied thousands of people and discovered in his research that not only is our ability to play the single most significant factor in determining our success and happiness, but that violent murderers often suffered from a chronic lack of play in their childhood. Game studies as an academic field is exploding in a million different fascinating directions. People like today's next speaker, Miguel Sicart, have looked at the ethics of games, the ethics of playing games, and the ethical responsibilities of game designers. In fact, we've got a whole raft of fascinating speakers from many different fields lined up for your route over the next 2 days, so get ready to have your playful minds expanded. Games can be art, games can be entertainment, and games can just be a form of play almost exactly like that of the tiger card that I showed you. Exuberant activity that makes us feel good and that connects us to others. I hope that as you visit with us here today at Woot, the very many different kinds of games and play that you see here and the talks that you hear will help you to question what games and play are and what they could mean to you in your life. In my life, as a game designer, I think that I've been blessed by Fortuna. Check it out, she's got a ball which she's about to kick, but she hasn't got any feet. So I think that I've been blessed by Fortuna, in that thinking about play has helped me definitely to become a happier and probably a better person, leading a fuller, richer life. Things that I've learned as a result of the chances that I've taken, my wins as well as my losses, my rivals and my teammates, and all the rich emotional experiences that I've had while playing, have shown me the wonderful impact that games can have on me. Whenever I roll that ancient 20-sided die and perform an experiment in play. And that's my talk. Thank you.